Good morning, dear friends. In this session, I intend to explain two topics that comes under the first module of English language teaching paper. My topic is generally about the important landmarks of English education. So, the first important area of discussion is on critique of Macaulay's Minute. So, before moving over to the core topic, let's first examine the foundation of English system of education in India before the composition of Macaulay's Minute. In the 18th century, Indian masses received religious education pertaining to Christianity through Christian missionaries. However, when the East India Company came to India, they did not allow the missionaries to propagate religious education to the common people in India. They felt that the education from the missionaries would encourage religious sentiments among the people in India that could affect the business policy and the diplomatic role of East India Company. So, it was through the Charter Act of 1813 that a state system of education was officially introduced in the Indian history. This clause of the Charter Act of 1813 compelled the East India Company to accept responsibility for the education of the Indian people. As a result, from 1813 to 1857, the company opened many schools and colleges under their control, which laid the foundation of English system of education in India. So the first mode of education received by Indians were from the Christian missionaries, and the basic education they gave to the people was religious in nature. And in this clause, Governor General in Council directed that a sum of 1 lakh of rupees each year shall be set apart for the revival and improvement of literature and encouragement of the learned natives of India, and for the introduction and promotion of knowledge of science among the inhabitants of the British territories in India. So for the first time, official money was allotted to expand the education for the Indians. So this was the foundation of education system in India before the composition of Macaulay's Minute. And it's also very important to note that it was after the arrival of East India Company that the religious education or the propagation of religious education came to an end because they disagreed to propagate religious education to the masses. Now let's see who Thomas Babington Macaulay was. Thomas Babington Macaulay, who is generally regarded as the architect of the system of education in India during the British rule, was a great essayist, historian, linguist, orator, politician, statesman, and thinker. He was regarded as one of the first-rate literary figures of his time. He came to India on 10th June 1834 and joined as a law member of the Executive Council of the Governor General. He was also appointed as the President of the General Committee on Public Instruction by Governor General Lord William Bentinck. Circumstances that led to Macaulay's composition of Minute. When Macaulay came to India, he strongly believed that it was English language and culture that stands superior to all other languages in the entire globe. But during that time, after the publication of the Charter of 1813, there arose a big controversy between Anglicist and Classicist parties regarding the nature of teaching and education to Indian people. It also included the matter of the amount sanctioned by the East India Company for education. So, as a solution for this debate, on 2nd February 1835, Macaulay wrote a minute for educating the Indians, keeping aside the views of classicists or Orientalists. This minute was popularly known as Lord Macaulay's Minute of 1835. Even today, it has its effect on the education policy in India, and thus it is considered as a document of great historical value. For his inclination to the English language and Western education, from this we can find that Macaulay as a strong supporter of Anglicist party. So remember, the controversies were based on the provision of Charter Act of 1813. Now let's quickly analyze the controversies between both these parties. So as we said earlier, the debate was between Orientalists and Anglicists. The major topics of discussion regarding this included the objects of educational policy, the medium of instruction, that is, the language of teaching, then the agencies for organizing educational institutions, and the methods to be adopted to spread education among the people. The section 43 of the charter was interpreted differently by the Orientalist party, and they said that the literature which was meant to be revived and encouraged was the literature of Hindus and Muslims. But actually it was a misinterpretation. Now let's see what was the arguments put forward by Orientalists. They argued that the scholars who were studying in Oriental colleges should be given the support in the form of stipends and by publishing classical works for their use. The scholars who are studying in Orientalist college should be given the support. Then they said that Western knowledge and sciences should be taught to them through the medium of classical languages. They gave priority to classical languages rather than English language. Then they said they should also be taught the culture of their land for which they had great love and regard. Their culture and their language should be given prime importance. Then they also said that the act of translating useful books from English into Arabic and Sanskrit was perfectly justified. Again, we can see their love for their native language and culture. So these were some of the arguments put forward by the Orientalists favoring their native language and culture. Now to the Anglicist arguments. According to them, the Oriental system of education was slow and detrimental. They can never mix up or compromise the mixing up of Western and Oriental learning. They also said that they wanted the English as a medium for instructing Western sciences and literature among Indians. They cannot agree with the Orientalist argument of using native language in teaching Western sciences and literature. They wanted English as a medium for teaching these literature. They also wanted to utilize the entire education grant for the purpose of diffusing Western education alone. So for Anglicists, the Oriental system of education, it was slow and detrimental, and they also cannot agree with the concept of mixing up of these Western learning as well as Oriental learning at the same time. They also promoted the medium of English for Western education, promoting Western sciences and literature. And also they desired to utilize the entire educational grant for the purpose of Western education alone. Thus, such a controversy led the way to the composition of Macaulay's Minute. The Minute was very forceful in nature as it completely rejected the Orientalist arguments and supported the Western learning, that too through the medium of English. So on March 7, 1835, Lord William Bentinck accepted Macaulay's recommendations and sanctioned it officially. It was made official by William Bentinck. In the year 1837, English was hailed as a court language, and Indians were allowed high posts after the government resolution of 1844. So all these measures resulted in a rapid growth of English education, and a number of schools and colleges were also established. As you can see Macaulay's words here, Macaulay, he desired to create a class of persons Indian in blood and color and English in taste, in opinion, in moral and in intellect. So these were the arguments. This was opinion of Macaulay regarding the English education. Now to the arguments put forward by Macaulay in favor of English in his Minute. First one, he said that it is a key. English is a key to modern knowledge and it is therefore more useful than Arabic or Sanskrit. That's why he preferred English. Then, English stands preeminent even among the language of the West in India. He gave prime importance to the status of English among all the languages of the West in India. Then English is a language sponsored by ruling classes. Then it's likely to become the language of commerce throughout the seas of the East. This was the opinion of Macaulay. Then again, English would bring about Renaissance in India just as Greek or Latin did in England. As in the Renaissance in England, English is likely to bring about Renaissance in India, or just as languages of Western Europe in civilized Russia. Then again he says, the natives are desirous of being taught English and are not eager to learn Sanskrit or Arabic. He also says that even the native people have a desire of being taught English rather than learning Sanskrit or Arabic. Then it is possible to make the natives of this country good English scholars, and to that end our efforts ought to be directed. So their effort aims to make the natives good English scholars. Then again, it was impossible to educate the body of people, but it was possible through English education to bring about a class of persons Indian in blood and color, and English in taste, opinion, in moral and in intellect, as that education was to filter down from them to the masses. So these were the arguments put forward by Macaulay in favor of English. As Macaulay ended his minute, he dramatically posed a threat of resigning from his position as the president of General Committee of Public Instruction if his proposals were rejected. Though it was an empty threat, he knew that it was an empty threat, but things happened as he anticipated. What happened? Bentinck immediately gave his entire concurrence to the minute. Bentinck was also very anxious to settle this educational controversy before his departure from India. So, for the purpose of its speedy implementation, Bentinck deliberately prevented any discussion of Macaulay's scheme in the General Committee of Public Instruction. Then a resolution was made in 7th March 1835, giving effect to the new policy. In that resolution, it is said that the great object of British government is the promotion of European literature and science among the native Indians, and all the funds that was allowed would be appropriated for English education alone. However, in the significant departure from the minute, apart from the minute submitted by Macaulay, Bentinck disavowed any intention to abolish any college or school of native learning, while the native population shall appear to be inclined to avail themselves of the advantages which it affords. So, although the resolutions stipulated that no further stipends be awarded for Oriental studies, it was careful to direct that native scholars already in receipt of government grants would continue to enjoy their allowances. The native scholars, they are allowed to receive the grants that they have been already receiving before. Bentinck's concessions on these points seem to have prompted by pressures from influential groups in Calcutta's Muslim and Hindu communities. All this happened. Such a opinion was given by Bentinck was because of the petitions submitted by the Calcutta's Muslim and Hindu communities after hearing the news of Macaulay's scheme. They have submitted petitions to the government protesting against the new policy. That's why the above mentioned opinions were given by Bentinck. Then Macaulay left India in December 1837, apparently with the satisfaction for the job he did in India. So from this discussion, we come to a conclusion. We can summarize the contributions of Macaulay in these following points. He laid the foundation stone of Western system of education on Indian soil. He was the man who became the reason for implantation of English education, Western system of education in Indian soil. Then he opened the door of Western science and literature for Indians. And also he brought an end to the Orientalist and Anglicist controversy in India. Different waves of criticism emerged out after the publication of Macaulay's Minute, and many criticisms were made against this, and some of the criticisms are
Macaulay's claim about English as only the medium of instruction cannot be justified. According to Macaulay, English was only medium of instruction, but it cannot be justified. Then, it's wrong to believe that Macaulay was responsible for introducing a new education policy in India. We cannot hail the position of such a great position for Macaulay for having introducing new education policy in India. That was the second thing. Then another idea is that other Indian languages were neglected when Macaulay gave prime importance to English. Then again, his downward filtration theory. This means that for Macaulay, according to him, education was provided to a small portion of people, some classes of people, and through them education was conveyed to masses. This was the idea of Macaulay. But this is proved to be more a failure for Indians. It's not possible among Indians. Such a downward filtration theory is impossible among Indians. So these were some of the criticisms made against Macaulay's opinions. Some of the merits of Macaulay's Minute include a clear-cut policy of education, definite purpose of education, establishment of English schools, English as a medium of instruction, the proposition of filtration theory. So these are some of the merits of Macaulay's Minute. Now to some of the demerits of Macaulay's Minute. Closure of Sanskrit Pathshalas and Arabic madrasas. So with the arrival of English education, it led to the closure of Sanskrit Pathshalas and Arabic madrasas, which was a part of Indian culture. Then a setback to Oriental learning. Then neglect of vernaculars, other languages. So the vernacular languages were neglected. Then neglect of mass education. Then opposition of Sanskrit and Arabic language. Again, the opposition of Indian languages. These were some of the notable demerits of Macaulay's Minute.
The next topic of discussion is landmarks in the development of educational administration in India after independence. Hunter Commission of 1882 can be pointed as a notable start in the development of educational administration in India. So let's see what was the condition before independence in India. Before 1947, the restricted educational program developed by British were only carried out by educational administrators. But still, Hunter Commission in the year 1882, it was the first commission which gave wide and comprehensible recommendations on education in Indian context. So after independence, diverse educational programs with greatly changed objectives were expanded and developed. Along with new theories of educational administration, new techniques were also employed. Educational administration after 1947. Unlike the pre-independence period, education was identified as a tool of eradicating poverty and ill practices of society. The government took the responsibility of educating citizens and was made more authenticated after the Constitution of India got regulated on 26th January 1950. In order to survey, study, review, and recommend improvements in the different sectors of education, a series of commissions were appointed, and the four major commissions formed were University Education Commission 1948 to 49, Secondary Education Commission 1952, Indian Education Commission 1964 to 66, and National Policy of Education 1968. So the first commission, it's a University Education Commission in 1948 to 49. To take into the problems of university education, the University Education Commission was appointed by the Government of India in the year 1948 under the chairmanship of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. The commission made important suggestions for improving the standard of university education in the country. So some of the suggestions made by the commission are university education should be placed in the concurrent list, which means that both the state and central governments could legislate on the subject of education. Both central and state governments have control over this subject of education. Then university should be teaching institutions rather than affiliating types. It should be a teaching type of institutions rather than affiliating types of institution. Then the central government should be responsible for finance, coordination of facilities in special subject and adoption of a national policy ensuring minimum standards of efficiency. University Grants Commission should be set up for allocation of funds. Funds should be allocated by the setting up of University Grants Commission. Then the state should recognize its responsibility for the maintenance of standard and financing of higher education. The aid should be given to private colleges for buildings and equipments. Steps should be taken to amend income tax laws in order to promote donation for educational purposes. A 3-year degree course for the first university degree be introduced. Rural universities should be established in various states of the country. So these were the various suggestions that has been put forward by University Education Commission in order to improve the standard of university education regarding the finance, the coordination of facilities, and also about the matter of legislation. Then the funds allocated for education purposes, maintenance of standards, and the responsibility of authorities, etc. has been included in these suggestions. So the second one is Secondary Education Commission in the year 1952. Since our secondary education remains the weakest link in our educational machinery, it needs urgent reform. This led to the establishment of an All India Commission for Secondary Education in the year 1952 under the chairmanship of Dr. A. Lakshmanaswamy Mudaliar. This commission offered a number of suggestions to recognize needs of secondary education. The commission identified secondary stage of education as the important link of our education system because it prepares individuals for vocation as well as higher education. The commission gave following recommendations to recognize secondary education based on new goals and need of independent India. Just like the University Educational Commission, the Secondary Education Commission has also given certain recommendations regarding the secondary education, and it gives importance to this secondary education because it is the secondary education that prepares individuals for vocation, to get into a profession, and that will train them to enter into a higher education sector, so that this commission, Secondary Education Commission, has given certain recommendations. It also gives equal concern for the qualitative improvement of schools, and also about new trends in examination, guidance, and extracurricular work were also brought into the school programs. So the main recommendations of the commission are as follows. First one, the secondary education should commence after 4 or 5 years of primary education and should include the secondary education should start after 4 or 5 years of primary education, and it should include the middle or senior basic secondary stage of 3 years and also the higher secondary stage of 4 years. Then the present intermediate stage should be replaced by the higher secondary stage, which should be of 4 years duration, 1 year of the present intermediate being included in it. Then, as a consequence of the preceding recommendations, the first degree course in the university should be of 3 years duration. The first degree course should be of 3-year duration. Then for those who pass out of high school, there should be provision of a pre-university course. The major recommendation of Secondary Education Commission was to implement diversified curriculum at secondary stage. At the secondary stage, there should be diversified curriculum available for students. Then multi-purpose schools should be established wherever possible to provide varied courses of interest to students with diverse aims, aptitudes, and abilities. Different multiple streams of interest will be encouraged or should be encouraged in order to create interest in students of diverse aims, aptitudes, and abilities. Then technical schools should be started in large numbers, either separately or as part of multi-purpose schools. Technical schools should also be started.
So these were the main recommendations of this commission. The commission's recommendations were integrated in the successive 5 years plan and get direction to be implemented both at the center and the states in 1954. The next commission is Indian Education Commission in the year 1964 to 1966, and this is popularly known as the Kothari Education Commission. Most of us will be familiar with this name, Kothari Education Commission. It was formed on 14th July 1964 under the chairmanship of Dr. Daulat Singh Kothari. And this commission realized that the existing facilities and arrangements for the training of educational administrators are inadequate. This found the inadequacy of the existing facilities and arrangements. That training is needed to orient educational administrators to educational expansion and improvement programs. So that training, more training should be given for more improvement. This was the aim of Indian Education Commission. And in this respect, Commission made few recommendations regarding their decisions, and these recommendations are given below. So it says the State Institute of Education, in collaboration with the universities, wherever needed, should organize in-service education programs for all non-gazetted educational staff on the administrative and inspectional side. So as we said earlier, there's a need for improvement in training. So such an initiative is taken by Indian Education Commission, so that this commission says about the need for an in-service education program for all non-gazetted educational staff on the administrative and inspectional side. They should provide in-service training of about 2 months to every officer in every 5 years of his or her service. Then in addition, they should also organize conferences, seminars and workshops for the gazetted staff. The different ways of training that should be implemented or that should be provided for the educational staffs is being listed here. Then the Ministry of Education should run a national staff college for senior educational administrators of the State Department of Education. Some incentives should be provided to the officers who would improve their qualifications materially through programs of in-service education. So along with these recommendations that we have discussed, along with this, it has also given recommendations for both school as well as higher education differently. So it contains a long list of recommendations. The next is National Policy of Education in the year 1968. Based on the report and recommendations of the Education Commission, the government announced the first National Policy on Education in 1968, which called for a radical restructuring and equality of educational opportunities so that national integration and more cultural and economic development can be achieved. It aimed at national integration and also to more cultural and economic development. It advocated a broadly uniform educational structure in all parts of the country and increasing gradually the investment in education. The ultimate objective was to adopt the 10+2+3 pattern. The National Policy on Education, it was adopted by Parliament in May 1986, and this new policy called for special emphasis on the removal of disparities. It aimed at the removal of disparities so that it can attain equality and to equalize the educational opportunity. The NPE, National Policy on Education, it recommends for an overhaul of the system of planning and the management of education. So in order to achieve its goal, this policy has also made certain considerations, and they are evolving a long-term planning and management perspective of education and its integration with countries' developmental and manpower needs. Decentralization and creation of a spirit of autonomy for educational institutions. There should be decentralization and it should provide equality. Then giving importance to people's involvement, including association of non-governmental agencies and voluntary effort. It gave importance to the outside involvement, people's involvement. Then inducting more women expert professionals in the planning and management of education, and also establishing the principle of accountability in relation to given objectives and norms. Again, in the coming years, other committees were set up in order to review the national policy of education and to recommend for more modifications. And again, after analyzing this, we may find that the national policy of education and its program of action, it gives a clear blueprint. It stands as a clear blueprint of the administration of education from the grassroots level to the higher levels. Universalization of elementary education and eradication of illiteracy, in addition to quality education, with active participation of local communities, NGOs, charitable trusts, and educationists, so as to promote decentralization of education. So this was the aim of National Policy of Education as well as its program of action. So after looking into the various commissions formed for the proper administration of education, let's see the district and local level educational administration. In order to administer education up to the higher secondary level, district boards of education will be created. State governments will attend to this aspect with all possible expedition. And then within a multi-level framework of educational development, central, state, district and local level agencies will participate in planning, coordination, monitoring and evaluation. These processes will be the responsibility of central, state, district and local level agencies. Then a very important role must be assigned to the head of an educational institution. Heads will be specifically selected and trained. They will be given special training. Then school complexes will be promoted on a flexible pattern so as to serve as a network of institutions and synergic alliances to encourage professionalism among teachers, to ensure observance of norms of conduct, and to enable the sharing of experiences and facilities. It is expected that a developed system of school complexes will take over much of the inspection functions in due course. And at the same time, in case of educational administration at local level, local communities will be assigned a major role in programs of school improvement through appropriate bodies. Different bodies will be created and local bodies will be given different duties in order to make the local level administration possible and successful. Now let's examine the role of voluntary agencies and aided institutions in educational administration. Non-government and voluntary efforts, including social activist groups, will be encouraged to provide proper management and financial assistance. At the same time, steps will be taken to prevent the commercialization of education by preventing mushroom growth of institutions. So since institutions grows like mushroom, if there is a crowd of institutions, then the education will become commercialized. It becomes a commercial product. So in order to prevent that, necessary steps will be taken. Then education being portfolio of both state and central government, it's imperative to have autonomous organizations like CBSE and BSE at center and state levels to look after the functioning of educational system. These are other autonomous organizations in order which also play a major role in the administrative process in educational system. Another important and familiar point is that according to the National Policy of Education, at district level, there should be District Institute of Education and Training or DIET. Then the utmost importance must be to the proper implementation of the educational system with the active participation of the community based on pure research in the field of administration of education. So these are the important roles played by the essential, inevitable roles played by voluntary agencies as well as aided institutions in the administrative process of educational system. So as a whole, to sum up the important landmarks, we have seen that prior to 1947, before independence, the role of educational administrators in India was simply, what was their role? To carry out the restricted educational program developed by British. Other than the British implementation, nothing was done. Then after the independence, we have seen that
various educational programs were developed, and they were having greatly changed objectives also. Then again, for the implementation of these new programs, the educational administrators' jobs takes on new dimensions and requires not only new theories, they have also adopted new techniques. Then we have seen about a series of commissions and committees being formed to were appointed to survey, study, review, and recommend improvements in different sectors of education to improve quality of education. So that's all about the landmark of education after independence in India. Thank you. Thank you for patient listening.